Good morning to you all. I wish I was personally there to meet you, to greet you, to speak to you in this fantastic event, Global Solution Summit, that my friend Arvind Watkins has organized. I'm sorry I can't be there physically, but I'm very happy that through technology I'm able to connect with you. I want to begin by thanking my good friend Al for giving me this opportunity to give this opening talk on a subject that is very close to my heart, our hearts. It has to do with, of course, Sustainable Development Goals. But can we use inclusive disruptive innovation as a tool to advance the Sustainable Development Goals? Now, we all know what these Sustainable Development Goals are, 17 of them. Here are a few that you will see. And they pertain, of course, to the issues of poverty, food for all, health for all, education for all, the climate change issues, and so on and so forth. The challenge is, how do we actually rapidly move towards achieving these goals? And as I said, by using disruptive inclusive innovation. Now you would say, what is disruptive inclusive innovation? I have a way of putting it very simply, and that is simply that we want to get more performance from less resource for more people. So getting more from less for more is the way to do inclusive disruptive innovation. In fact, this was a term, MLM, that has been now commonly used to describe inclusive disruptive innovation. I remember, my mind goes back to 2008 in Canberra. I remember I was honored with the Australian Technological Science Engineering Academy as a fellow, and I was asked to give an innovation talk there, the ATSC Innovation Forum lecture to be more precise. And I remember talking about Gandhian engineering, getting more from less for more. Where does Mahatma Gandhi come in here? He comes in because he always said that the fruits of science must reach the poorest of the poor. That means for all. Secondly, he said there is enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. What it means is that the resources that you have, which are exhaustible, please preserve them for your grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and so on and so forth. That means for more and more people. So from more, you want to get, for more people, you want to do more from less for more. That is something that was suggested in 2008. I'm very happy to see that it caught on. C.K. Prahlad and I wrote a paper in Harvard Business Review. It was titled as Innovation's Holy Grail, Getting More from Less for More. And I'm very proud to say that it was ranked as among the top 10 must-read papers in innovation, and it caught the fancy of the world. In fact, so fast that our paper came up in July and August, but the World Economic Forum on 16 November, just within 6 months, had a session on more from less for more, because that's what was envisaged is going to be the real solution. Later on, I was invited to give a talk, and you can visit this talk on the same theme. It is subtitled in 27 languages now. More than 0.65 million viewers have had a view of this. And more from less for more magic continues. In fact, a couple of years ago in Munich, they held a special symposium on more from less for more. Why in Munich? Why European Union should be concerned? Why Germany should be concerned? So when you talk about refugees, you talk about their problems, how do we get more from less for more of those people who are resource poor, who are struggling, became the key of the discussion there. Now, you will hear more from less for more in different terminologies. Like, for example, you will hear Gandhian innovation that I talked about. You will hear about affordable excellence. You will say, come on, you must be joking. What is affordable can't be excellent. What is excellent cannot be affordable. But I will show you by examples as to how that can be actually achieved. Frugal innovation is a very common terminology. Books are being written on this. And of course, reverse innovation was another term that was coined. And finally, inclusive innovation, which is the subject, not just inclusive, but disruptive inclusive innovation as the subject. So these terminologies, when you hear, they mean more or less the same. There are subtle differences, however, which I'll explain as we move ahead. Now, I said more from less for more, but my friend Watkins added value to it. I like to pay a tribute to him by calling this diagram as Watkins-Mashelkar diagram. I had talked about more from less, and who will deliver that more from less? That means who will create products which are very affordable but excellent in quality. Of course, that is the job of science, technology, innovation community. But then more from less for more. How would you take it to more and more people? How will you move from mind to marketplace? And that requires deployment, and that deployment requires an ecosystem. So how do we have, I'm using the word game changing, I'm using the word disruption, I'm using the word inclusion. How do we create a real game changing disruption? For example, high quality recombinant DNA based hepatitis B vaccine. If you make it 40% cheaper, it is not really disruptive. But if you make it 40 times cheaper, then it is disruptive because it can reach far more people. Similarly, high quality cataract surgery, not 100% cheaper, but 100 times cheaper. High quality open heart surgery, not 20% cheaper, but 20 times cheaper. High quality artificial foot, and I will talk about Jaipur foot, 300 times cheaper, not 300%. So basically, when we talk about real disruption, real game change, we are talking about getting much more from much less for many, many more people. Then only we can make an impact. Now, in order to do that, we require a real inclusive, disruptive innovation ecosystem. Now, that deployment ecosystem will have many players, not just the scientists, technologists, and so on, which you see here in the top part of the figure. But you also require the participation by the government. You require participation by the civil society. You require participation by the private sector. And it has to be an orchestra where all the players actually play together. Now, private sector and government, of course, for sustainable development goals, like this slide shows, we have been looking at what are the government initiatives and what is the private sector that can do. This is, of course, an Indian slide. By the way, many of my examples are Indian because as far as my book of my life is concerned, I have experienced India more than anything else. So you see here, for example, the good health and well-being initiative, the number of missions, whether it is on AIDS or child development stuff being set up. But at the same time, the private sector has a role in providing affordable and accessible medicines, for example. That's not what the government can do. So they all have to actually work together. What is the big challenge that I see? I see that our progress is rather slow. I see that there is a need to advance SDGs earlier, sooner rather than later. We have to think in terms of accelerated inclusive growth, not just inclusive growth, but acceleration. And acceleration means you have to have bold and out-of-the-box thinking. How do we do that? I'll give again a lesson from my book of life. You see in this picture, myself along with Mr. Mukesh Ambani, who chairs Reliance, our biggest company with $125 billion market cap. It didn't exist 45 years ago, and we have risen really exponentially. And there is a Reliance Innovation Council, which I chair. It has Nobel laureates, great thought leaders. C.K. Prahlad was a member, for example, George Whiteside from Harvard, and so on. So what we say there is growth is life, yes, but innovation has to become a way of life, and innovation-led growth is very critical. And in this case, we are talking about innovation-led inclusive growth. Okay. Now, he and I, while we were talking, he said, "Doc, we must leapfrog." So I said, "Why does a frog leap?" He leaps because he's afraid of the predators. It's a defensive action to safety, basically. Rather than that, we must pole vault. The size of the pole determines the distance to which you can go. So the new paradigm shift that we want to make is that when you see a wall, you don't go and start breaking it brick by brick by taking a hammer, but you go over it, as a matter of fact, setting higher and higher benchmarks. Now, so leapfrog, no, just a few feet. Pole vault, yes, just going over. That was the big paradigm shift that we talked about. Now, has Reliance done it? Yes. They entered this business of telecom rather late, I would say, just 4 or 5 years ago. And if you look at the mobile data usage in India, India stood here and everybody else, as you see here, stood tall. But what Jio has been able to do is not just to leapfrog, but to pole vault. And to pole vault to what? Pole vault to the first position. We are not leapfrog to the 100th position. We are pole vaulted to the first position. And then you would say, but what's the big thing in that? I mean, that can happen. But you look at the way it was done. For example, if you look at the number of years to reach 50 million users, you will see that telephone took 50 years, mobile took 12 years, YouTube took 4 years, Facebook took 2 years, Twitter took 2 years, and now here you have Reliance doing it in 83 days. And it required innovation, by the way. Okay. Now, you would say, well, this has happened, this is bravery, you have done a great act, but what difference does it make as far as SDGs are concerned, as far as inclusion is concerned? And you can see a huge inclusion. For example, if you look at the scenario before Jio and after Jio, the 4G Vodafone was available for US $300. It has been brought down to $2,300. Look at the data per GB, the cost. It was $5. It has been brought down by 100 times, basically. And the voice expenditure, $1.6 per minute, it has been brought down to 0. So just see the difference Jio has made. And today we have something like 360 million customers just built up in the last 2 years. So it is amazing. Now you would say pole vaulting is fine, but when you do pole vaulting, there is a danger. How do you make sure that you land in the right way so that you don't break your bones? All right. So we suggest a strategy for that, and we provide an assured framework. What is assured framework? So that it can give you assured success. A is affordable. It has to be. Scalable, yes, because once you are affordable, then only you are scalable. That's why India has 1 billion mobiles today. It has to be sustainable. Sustainable on 3 fronts. The first is economic. You can't depend on government subsidies and so on and so forth, government does. But it has to be a standalone business model, a revenue model. Then environmental sustainability, because anything that is not green, the society will not accept it. Then society, people must accept it. Like GMOs, they say no. Nuclear energy, they say no. So how do you make that happen? Then universal, user-friendly, user-acceptable, user at the front, customer at the front. The next one is rapid. Rapid in terms of product as well as in terms of process. In terms of process, moving from, let us say, an idea to impact or mind to marketplace. How fast do you do it? Not take years, but months and weeks. Similarly, a product. For example, take the case of dengue. In my mother's name, as I will refer later, there is an award called Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award, and we give it to Disruptive Inclusive Innovation. Dengue takes about a couple of days for detection, and Naveen Khanna did it in 15 minutes. Rapid. And can you imagine his market share, which was 0%, became 78% within 2 years. Now he will be also displaced, not 15 minutes, but 5 minutes. So therefore, the rapid part of it. Excellence part of it, I already explained, affordable and excellence have to come together. And finally, distinctive, it cannot be me too. So this is the matrix. And we can test out every invention, every process against this matrix. Look at Jio, for example, and you can see it meets everything. It is affordable, scalable, sustainable, universal, rapid, excellent, and distinctive. You look at Jaipur food that I mentioned about, and these are photographs that I myself taken on mobile about 3 months ago when I visited Jaipur. And you can see this poor lady who has lost her limbs and how she is able to stand and walk. But she would not be if it was not affordable, just $20. And as I said, more from less for more and more people, 1.7 million people. It is sustainable, universal, rapid, excellent and distinctive. So the assured story of Jaipur food, assured story of Jio tells us how we have to move. And then there is of course this Sustainable Development Goals on education for all. Look at this family which is living in a pipe, but look at her poor mother, and she is actually preparing her daughter with a uniform for going to school. But as this daughter goes, the world is changing, digital learning is sort of coming. So therefore, if she doesn't have affordable access to the digital, what would she do? And then India had created this Simputer, poor people's computer. You know, when? Year 2001. Okay? And you can see the kids sort of enjoying this. In fact, I don't want to speak about Simputer. Let us read what Bruce Sterling, the New York Times Magazine, had said. It said, the most significant innovation in computer technology in 2001 was not Apple's gleaming titanium PowerBook G4 or Microsoft's Windows XP. It was the Simputer, a net-linked, radically simple, portable computer intended to bring the computer revolution to the third world. Mark the word revolution. Okay, not innovation, revolution. Revolution means actually pole vaulting. But what happened? If you look at the assured matrix, it was affordable, it was distinctive, it was excellent, rapid, universal, but it did not scale. It was not sustainable. Why? Again, go back to Watkins Mashelkar diagram. So, Simputer had delivered on the left-hand side by creating more from less. But the deployment for more just did not take place. Why was that the case? Why couldn't we pole vault? Because as you can see here, you require kinetic energy. When you look at that paradigm shift, you require kinetic energy to sort of go over the bar. And policy interventions can provide you with that kinetic energy, increase the speed. So for example, in this particular case, if there's a bold and innovative policy for public procurement, guaranteed offtakes, price subsidy, it would have made a huge difference. It was missing. Okay? And Simputer would have changed the world, basically. So I think the basic issue that I'm talking about is getting the act together with not just technology, but total innovation, of which technology is just one component, but business model innovation, system delivery innovation, workflow innovation, process innovation, organization innovation, and policy innovation. And if I had time, I would have shown you how all these have worked together to create disruptive, inclusive innovation. But I will just give you one example. For example, look at India. We have poor people. They don't have bank accounts. So therefore, whenever government wants to give subsidy, out of 100 rupees, 10 rupees used to reach them, basically. How do you make sure that 100 out of 100 reach? So you have to have financial inclusion. For that require bank accounts, and they were being built, but slowly. But then what happened? The total innovation, all the technology, workflow, system delivery, policy innovation came together. 1 billion mobiles, 1 billion Aadhaar cards, which are both identity and authentication, and 360 plus million Jandan accounts were created. And in fact, Guinness Book of Record certificate, as you can see here, has been given for the fastest financial inclusion in the world, satisfying the SDGs that we actually want. So coming back again to the inclusive disruptive innovation pyramid ecosystem, we talked about the role of science, technology, innovation ecosystem, the government, the private sector, but NGOs also have a role to play. Civil society has a role to play. Let me just give you an example. Arvind Eye Care. You know, not $3,000 cataract surgery, but $30 cataract surgery. So you would say, oh my God, 100 times less? That means it must be 100 times worse. Sorry, I don't have time to show you a table. But there is a Royal College of Ophthalmic Surgeon cataract surgery versus Arvind Eye Care cataract surgery, and 9 post-operative parameters. Can you believe it? In 9 out of 9, Arvind Eye Care beats Royal College of Ophthalmic Surgeons. Affordable excellence going together. Private sector helped it by creating a low-cost manufacturing company set up with a joint venture. Civil society, because you have to take tens of thousands of the people who needed to be operated, and the civil society came together to do that, and 2.5 million eye tests and 300,000 cataract surgeries per year. Affordable, scalable, sustainable, user-friendly, excellent, distinctive, all these parts. And it has gone to other countries now. This particular model is being used in other countries. Let me again come back to the Watkins Mashelkar diagram, all right? Because what we are urging the scientists to do is, for heaven's sake, focus on getting more from less for more and more people, so that we can deploy it for more and more people. Those challenges with scientist mindset. I remember I had the fortune of meeting President Obama a few years ago, and it was a dinner, and of course, when you meet, you have a protocol, you are introduced. So when my term came, they said, Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, Chairman of National Innovation Foundation of India. And I remember President Obama asked me, what innovation do you do? Can you just imagine, in a few seconds I have to answer what I have done in 70 plus years. And I remember my answer. I said, Mr. President, I do innovation that works for all and not for some privileged few. And that's what I have done all my life. So what do we as scientific community need to do? I think we have to develop an inclusive mindset, which means our drivers are curiosity-driven science. No. Can we look at applications-driven and cost-conscious science? We are driven by sophisticated research capabilities, which is very popular, of course, among the policymakers. Can we start looking at innovative entrepreneurs who are faced with the challenge of scarcity on one hand and aspiration on the other? By the way, combination of scarcity and aspiration can be sort of a fantastic combination. The markets, rather than establish route from idea, product to marketplace, no, you have to find new routes to not yet established markets. Similarly, margins, rather than recouping your higher R&D costs by keeping big margins, no, high volumes, low margins. And the goals, the basic goal, the purpose, not just improving productivity and economic growth, but improving life of people, their livelihood, creating social harmony. That's a far bigger purpose. How do we make that mind shift? And I'm talking as a representative of scientific community. And of course, scientific community does it. Like our IIT Madras, which is among our top 5 institutions, has created this water purifier which provides arsenic-free water at just 5 paise a liter. 100 paise is a rupee, by the way, and 70 rupees is a dollar. You can see how cheap it is, and it is spreading, and the government is playing a role. In fact, the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation has created a standing committee called Mashelkar Committee, and actually this Amrut technology is being looked at by the government to create support systems at the state levels to take it forward. So scientists have done their job. The government has to do their job. Then, of course, we talked about everybody else, but what about businessmen? What about private sector? There again, they must move from exclusive to inclusive. Because the focus has been so far technologically sophisticated, performance-rich products. No, frugal, functional, but high-quality products. Remember, I keep on saying affordable excellence. Remove features to reduce costs somehow or the other so that poor people can afford it. No, reinvent the product from ground up. Premium price, high margins, no. Affordable price, high volumes, 1 billion. Technology push, product out approach, we have to move to customer-centric, market-based approach. We always look at the given pie, current markets and old money. No, there are new markets and new money, because as poor become lower middle class become middle class, there is a new market that is emerging, new customer that is emerging. And finally, not just using developer partners to transform emerging markets, that will not happen, but you have to actually build new global growth platforms. In fact, my paper with C.K. Prahlad in Harvard Business Review explains how the business should move on that. Let me, while ending, summarize for you the 5 keys for successful scaling. I think first is that we have to ensure assured metrics. 1 or 2 letters of these fall and then the whole thing goes awry. We have to build entire ecosystem to support scale, not just standalone. We must focus on end-to-end innovation, and we have to remove the internal barriers. Many of them are mental, by the way, for inclusive business. And as far as external barriers are concerned, there will be financial, infrastructural, regulatory, marketing, distribution, and collective action with government, local NGOs all coming together. Now, there are non-traditional financing, including government sources that are available. Just to give you some examples, like DEFID's Business Innovation Facility, USA's Development Innovation Venture. There are social impact funds like Acumen Fund, Gregos Ventures. Then there are guarantee facilities like Root Capital. In India, we have actually a few years ago said that 2% of the net profit after tax would be spent on corporate social responsibility. So rather uniquely, we have created the Special Companies Act in 2013, and you can see the details on this. Basically, you might say that, look, you can't legislate compassion. Well, but this act, I can tell you from my experience, has helped a lot. And let me give you again a book from my book of life, example from my book of life. As I said, in my mother's name, I have created this Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award, which doesn't give the award to the best practice, but the next practice. And not incremental, but disruptive innovation. Like you see here, Mishkin Ingawale, a 28-year-old boy, who has created 10 cents for hemoglobin test. Non-invasive, by the way, no prick required. Look at Rahul Rastogi, for example, just 5 cents for a portable ECG, which you can carry in your pocket, and as accurate as a 12-lead one that you will get. And the last one, for example, Mihir Shah, young Mihir Shah, has created $1 breast cancer screening. $1? You can't believe it, but this is where it is. It is called iBreast. It actually is a low-cost tactile sensor that measures tissue stiffness non-invasively, so that you don't have to go through the pain of mammography. It is ultra-portable, accurate, minimal training, wireless, and cloud-connected, and instant results. So, he has delivered. But has it been deployed? Yes, look at this. He was helped by CSR funds. The private sector partners came in, like GE Healthcare. They joined together, and now they are going to 25 countries and for over 500 million women. Can you imagine a non-invasive $1 breast screening test, which has been, by the way, FDA approved as well as CE certified in US. That's what we mean by disruptive inclusive innovation. So when we talk about SDGs for health, this is what one would like to see. So for building an inclusive innovation ecosystem, at the end, we need an integrated national inclusive innovation policy, but must create supporting institutional system. We need a facile regulatory system supporting public procurement policy, like I kept on emphasizing. You can create a dedicated fund to support inclusive innovation, including private risk capital for bottom of the pyramid people. And we must mandate the public research system to channel the very best technical scientific expertise, like the examples that I gave. And finally, it's work for all. I think we all must come together. We are all concerned citizens. We are global citizens. And we must have collaboration between national, regional, global STI organizations to leverage global talent for a great purpose. And finally, we can always set grand challenges. You look at all the 17 SDGs. In each of these, you can set actually grand challenges which will lead to disruptive, inclusive innovation. One of the SDGs is about, of course, food for all, but not just food, but healthy, nutritious, safe, and diverse foods. How can we have a dream of 20 billion meals a day by 2025? Looks too tall, isn't it? No, but we need to pole vault to this future through assured, inclusive, disruptive innovation. That's the only way. Otherwise, you can't achieve it. Now, this is the book that I have, Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting. It was published on 15 January, and I'm very happy to say within 45 days it has gone for a reprint. The title, Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting, I explained to you. But what is important is the subtitle. The subtitle is Creating the Magic of Radical Yet Sustainable Transformation. Look at what Nobel laureate Bob Grubb says. He says, the book provides a realistic view of the problems of the future. and some of them I have discussed, including the SDG goals. An optimistic vision of how they can be overcome. And by the way, I have the reputation in India of being a dangerous optimist, so that gets reflected in the book. But he clearly says that turning from reacting from fear, leapfrogging to planning to overcome seemingly unsurmountable barriers, that is pole vaulting, that will be the pathway for the future. And I've given you several examples on how it can be done. And he emphasizes that their solutions are appropriate for developed as well as developing world, because we both need that. Income inequalities is not just the developing world problem, it's a developed world problem too. How do you create access equality despite income inequality? And for doing all that, of course, this is my last slide. You can see the flock of birds that are flying together, but then one of them had the guts to break away and think about the way of doing things. So I would simply summarize that truly disruptive inclusive innovation for rapidly advancing SDGs, which will be a dream, will require such breakaway minds. Because if you go in the usual way, you will end up at the usual paths, and you can't meet the end goals. And this has to be done, those mindset change, for all stakeholders, not just some, like I explained. And then only can we create a world where all the 17 SDGs will be met, and then our dream of seeing smile on the face of not just a selected few, privileged few, but the smile on the face of all 7 billion people of the world will come true. Thank you very much.